So in the previous session, we explained or we treated the remainder theorem. Now in this session, our topic will be the solution to polynomial equation. Okay, solutions to polynomial equation. Okay, so when I started in session 1, in the first session, remember I mentioned the solution to quadratic equation when I said we can use the formula method, the complete square method, the factorization, and the graphical method. That is for the quadratic equation. The polynomial equation is different. Okay, so how do we solve the polynomial equation? So to do that, there is no formula to do that. There's no formula. But you can use a graphical method to do that. You can use a graphical method. We can use trial and error method to find a root. Okay? And we can also use the numeric method. But how do we use the graphical method? Let's solve an example where I can illustrate the graphical method. So, an example is solve 4x cubed minus 8x squared minus x plus 2 equals to 0. So to use the graphical method, you are going to draw a table of x and y. Some questions may give you the range of values of x. Some questions may not give you. So which other way? If the question gives you the range of values of x, just write the range of values of x in this row of x. But if it was not given, make sure your x tends or spans from the negative to the positive. What do I mean? Minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, and probably 3. Okay, just take values of x, but let it go from negative to, but not too much range, just to save your time. Now, then you now start finding the values of y for each of these expressions. Okay, so let's find the values of y. You take your calculator and try to find the value of y when x is minus 2. So this becomes 4. So if you substitute each values of x into this equation, you will get these values of y. So because this minus 2 has a very large negative value, so let me just ignore it and use from minus 1 to 3, okay? Then you have to plot the graph. You have to just sketch. You don't have to plot, you have to sketch the graph, okay? So how do you sketch the graph? Then you plot your y-axis, then y and x. It's just a sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. So the values of x are minus 2, minus 1, then this will be 0, then 1, then 2, 3. The values of y are minus 9, negative 9, then 2 minus 3, here 0, 35. So this is, let's say this is, let me use 5. Or let me just write, yeah, it's because I have 35. So let me use 10, 20, 30, okay? So this is 10, 20, and then 30, 40. So 35 is kind of here. Then this is also 10. So let me take my point. When x is minus 1, y is minus 9. When x is minus 1, y is minus 9. That is this point. When x is 0, y is 2. When x is 0, then y is 2. It's going to be this point. I hope you guys get it. When x is 1, y is minus 3. When x is 1, y is minus 3. Doesn't have to be risky, but it should be sensible. Now, when x is 2, y is 0. When x is 3, y is 35. Okay? Then you join the points together. Then I have something like this. It goes this way. Then, so this is the curve. So if you look at this curve, the solutions are at 3 points. Okay? So like I said earlier, the solutions are at 3 points. Okay, so if you take a look at this graph, you will notice that there is a solution between -1 and 0. Okay, there's a solution between -1 and 0. There's another solution between 0 and 1. There's another solution at 2. So that implies that x is equal to 2 is a solution. But there are two other solutions. Okay, so because we are sketching, we only sketch this graph, it will be difficult for us to find the exact solution. If we had used a graph, it will be easy to find the solution because the solution will be at that point where this graph cut across the x-axis. So don't mind my drawing, my sketch is not perfect. Okay, that's why it's called a sketch. So if I've used a graph, it will have been perfect enough to get the exact solution where this curve crosses the x-axis. So because we don't know the exact solution, we have to guess. Do you understand? We have to guess a value between -1 and 0 and a value between 0 and 1. Okay, so this will now take us to the factor theorem. Okay, so let me explain the factor theorem so that I can now illustrate my guess. So I'll just get a value, let's say -half and half, because -half tends between -1 and 0 and half tends between 0 and 1. Then I can take this guess value to find the other two solutions. Okay, so why am I guessing? I've guessed these two values, so I will now test if they are solution using the factor theorem. So factor theorem is also the remainder theorem, but what is the difference? I will explain that now. So for the factor theorem, for a polynomial f of x, okay, then we have to find f of a. That is the value you are guessing. So if f of a is equal to 0, then a is a solution. So which implies that x minus a is a factor. Do you understand? If you remember that theorem, I said for every f of x, okay, the value of f of a is a remainder. That is if f of a is not equal to 0. If you guys can still remember that. So if f of a is equal to 0, then a is a solution. Then that implies that x minus a is a factor. I hope this is understood. Okay, good. So let's text that for this expression. So I said earlier that the x equals to 2 is a solution. So let me substitute x equals to 2 into this to confirm the factor theorem. So the equation is 4x cubed minus 8x squared minus x plus 2 is equal to 0. So let's substitute the value of x equals to 2 to confirm the factor theorem. Okay, so that implies that 2 cubed minus 8, 2 squared minus 2 plus 2, isn't it? So 2 cubed is 8, 4 times 8 is 32. 2 squared is 4, 8 times 4 is 32 minus 2 plus 2. You can see that this gives me 0. So that implies that x equals to 2 is a solution and x minus 2 is a factor. I hope you understand that. So if this is the case, then I can now try that for the two guess values of x of what? Of -half and half to see if these two values are solutions to this polynomial equation. Okay, so let's try that now. So you can see it here. So the equation, like I said earlier, was 4x cubed minus 8x squared minus x plus 2 minus x plus 2. So that implies that when x is -half, you just substitute -half into this equation. You can see 4 minus half cube minus half square minus half. So at the end of the equation, at the end of the calculation, I got 0. So that implies that x is equal to -half. That is, -half is a solution. And when x is equal to half as well, you can see half cubed, half squared minus half plus 2. Then I got this value, and the next value is what? Is 0. That means x is equal to half is also a solution. So the three solutions has been found to this quadratic equation. They are x is equal to 2 minus half and half. I hope this is understood. And for the factors, okay, for the factors, so I know that x is equal to 2 is a solution, x is equal to minus half is a solution, and x is equal to half is a solution. So how do I write the factors? It's very easy. To write the factors, you just take it to the other side. So this implies that x minus 2 is a factor. And at this point, you cannot just write x minus half is a factor. No. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find the LCM, or cross multiplying. This will become 2x minus 1. I hope this is understood. Because it is x minus half is equal to 0. Okay. So when you find the LCM is 2. 2 divided by 1 is 2 times x is 2x. 2 divided by 2 is 1 times 1 is equal to 0. Is that understood? So when you now cross multiply this, this becomes, this is 0 divided by 1. 2x minus 1 times 1 is 2x minus 1. 2 times 0 is 0. So that was how I got 2x minus 1. So to prevent doing this, just cross multiply. Okay, from this point, just write 2 times x, 2x, then minus 1. It's as simple as that. Okay, I hope this is understood. So 2x, why is it 2x minus 1? Because, oh, sorry, do we compare from here? To prevent confusion, just write x minus half, okay? Then cross multiply, this becomes 2x minus 1. This is just a short method, but this is actually the step. Do you understand? So if you do understand this, that means x equals to half, and this is x equals to minus half, isn't it? So for x equals to minus half as one of the solutions, this becomes x plus 1 over 2, isn't it? So when you multiply this, it becomes 2x plus 1. So these are the three factors to this polynomial equation. I hope this is understood. These are the three factors, and these are the three solutions. The solutions are 2, half, and minus half, and the factors are x minus 2, 2x minus 1, and 2x plus 1. I hope this is well understood. So in conclusion, if x minus a is a factor of the polynomial f of x, then f of a is equal to 0, and x is equal to a is the root of the equation f of x. Conversely, if f of a is equal to 0, then x minus a is a factor of f of x. What does that mean? That means if x minus a is a factor of f of x, then f of a will be equal to 0. That is a factor term that I just explained earlier. So if f of a is 0, that implies that x is equal to a is a what? Is a solution, or the root of the equation, because x minus a will be equal to 0 and x will be equal to a. So that means x is equal to a is the root of the equation, or a solution to the equation. Also, if f of a is 0, okay, if the value of f of a is equal to 0, that means that x minus a is a factor of f of x. So this summarizes the what? The factor theorem. Having done that, having understood that, let's solve this example. So the question says, given that f of x is equal to x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 2, show that x minus 2 is a factor. So you just have to use the factor theorem. So if x minus 2 is a factor, that implies that x equals to 2 should be a solution. That implies that f of 2 should be equal to 0, isn't it? According to what we did earlier. So let us find f of 2. F of 2 means substitute 2 to wherever you see x. That means this is 2 cubed minus 2 squared minus 3 times 2 plus 2. Okay, so this is 8 minus 4 minus 6 plus 2. 8 minus 4 minus 6 plus 2 should be what? So 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 minus 6 is minus 2 plus 2 is 0. So which proves that x minus 2 is a factor. Okay, so the question answer is solve the equation f of x is equal to 0. So we are asked to solve this equation. So to solve this equation, we already know that x minus 2 is a what? Is a factor. Since x minus 2 is a factor, that means we can use x minus 2 to divide that equation, since it is a factor, to get maybe to get other factors. Yes, to get other factors. So that implies that we have to use what? The long division method. Okay, or any other method you are comfortable with. So x minus 2, x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay, so let's divide again. So like I told you earlier, you divide this by this, and that should give you what? X squared, isn't it? Then you use it to multiply both of them. So x squared times x is x cubed minus 2x squared. Then you do what? You subtract. Of course, this cancels out this. This is minus x squared minus 2x squared. So this will be positive, isn't it? So the 2x squared will be positive. So that implies that this is what? This is x squared, because that will be 2x squared minus x squared. So there's nothing down here. That should give us minus 3x plus 2. You just write it down. Again, x squared divided by x is what? Plus x. So x times x is x squared. X times minus 2 is minus 2x. You subtract again, okay? This cancels out this. This is now positive 2x. Then this is minus x plus 2. Again, minus x divided by x is minus 1, okay? 1 times x is minus 1 times x is minus x. Minus 1 times minus 2 is plus 2. When you subtract this, of course, you get 0. That implies that the quotient is x squared. The quotient is x squared plus x minus 1. So you now solve x squared minus x plus 1. So x squared plus x minus 1, you solve this to get the other two factors. Okay, or to get the other two solutions, because we know that a solution is x is equal to 2. To get the other two, then we solve this quadratic equation to get the other two solutions. I hope this is understood. So to solve this solution, like I told you earlier, I am more comfortable to use the formula method because it works for all equation. And the formula method is x is equal to minus b plus or minus root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, okay, where the value of a is equal to the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. The value of b is the coefficient of x, which is 1. The value of c is the constant, which is minus 1. So then you have to substitute. Don't forget, when you are solving any problem in mathematics, when you write the formula, don't just write the answer. You have to substitute into the formula to get your solution. So this is minus b plus or minus the root of b squared, that is 1 squared minus 4. A is 1, c is minus 1 over 2a. Is this understood? So when you solve this, then your final answer should be, so after evaluating this, you will get minus 1 plus or minus root 5 over 2, which is also minus 1 plus root 5 over 2, or minus 1 minus root 5 over 2. So your final answer will be minus 1.618 or 0.618. So that implies that the three roots of this equation, or the three solutions of this equation, is minus 1.1618, 0.618, or 2. I hope this is well understood. If you have any question, you can just ask in the comment section. Thank you.